In a world where power is written in blood and survival isn't guaranteed by strength but by silence, one voice broke through. They said Omegas were extinct. They said the Alpha King's word was law. They were wrong. Because the night she was captured, something shifted in the city's heartbeat. A pulse no one could trace, a secret no one could contain. And before dawn, the hunter and the hunted would both learn the same truth. Some chains are invisible, and the most dangerous battles are the ones fought inside the mind. Rain bled through the city like static, sharp, cold, relentless. The subway tunnels below Nova Metropolis were choked with the smell of metal, sweat, and fear. Screens blinked red above the crowd. Mandatory scan in progress. Remain still. Ariana Vale didn't move. She couldn't. Her heart beat too fast, and she knew that was dangerous. Heart rate spikes triggered additional scans. The biometric towers were built to detect wolves, even dormant ones. She pressed her thumb into her palm, grounding herself, counting the pulse in her wrist like a mantra. 1, 2, 3, human. Stay human. But the machine didn't care what she wanted to be. A hum rippled through the air as the scanner light swept the station, slicing through faces. 1,000 commuters froze, hands raised, eyes hollow. When the beam touched Ariana's skin, her reflection flickered on the display, then glitched. The line that marked species classification blinked once, twice before turning black. Unregistered. The word hit harder than a gunshot. The crowd reacted instantly. Mothers pulled children close. Men turned their backs. Everyone knew what happened to untagged wolves. Security bots dropped from the ceiling, blue lights flashing. A synthetic voice echoed, flat and final. Unregistered DNA detected. Step forward immediately. Ariana didn't. She couldn't. Her entire life, 12 years hiding behind false IDs, scent blockers, synthetic pills, was about staying unseen. Omegas were property, lab material, breeding stock for the packs that controlled the government. If they found out what she was, they wouldn't just kill her. They'd take her apart to find out why she existed. The guards moved fast. One grabbed her arm, another jammed a scanner against her neck. The device hissed as it extracted her data, transmitting it to central registry. The officer's eyes widened when the result came back. Omega, he whispered. Unchipped. He stepped back like she'd infected him. Ariana tried to speak, but her throat locked. The people watching weren't human. They were afraid. Afraid of her. Afraid of what she meant. In a city where every wolf was tagged at birth, an unregistered Omega was an error in the system. And errors were erased. The station doors sealed. A helicopter's roar thundered above the tunnels. News drones swarmed in, broadcasting live to every screen across the city. Her face appeared on digital billboards. Unregistered Omega captured underground. And then, over the network feed, came a voice she had only ever heard through rumors and warnings. Deep, cold, controlled. Damien Kyle, the Alpha King. Bring her to my tower, he said, voice carrying through every speaker in the subway. Alive. The guards froze. Even they weren't used to hearing him directly. Ariana lifted her head for the first time. Her dark hair clung to her face, her eyes glowing faintly under the harsh fluorescent lights. For one split second, she didn't look afraid. She looked aware, as if she knew this wasn't a coincidence. Outside, thunder cracked across the skyline. The entire city watched as a lone girl in handcuffs was dragged into a convoy of armored vehicles, flanked by drones and armed wolves. Somewhere high above, in the glass fortress that crowned the skyline, Damien Kale watched her footage play in silence. The moment her face appeared, the biometric monitor on his wrist began to flicker, his pulse rising, his blood pressure spiking. His assistant leaned in, alarmed. "Sir, your vitals." He silenced him with a gesture. His eyes were fixed on the screen, on the girl who shouldn't exist. "Find out," he said quietly. How an Omega survived without a tag. Understood, sir. And when she arrives? Damien's gaze didn't leave the image. Rain drummed against the glass. When she arrives, he murmured, lock the broadcast on me. Scene transition. The arrival. The convoy raced through the neon-lit streets, sirens cutting through the rain. Ariana sat in the back, wrists magnetically bound, her reflection staring back at her through the black glass. Outside, news drones trailed them like vultures. She could see her own face replaying on every screen they passed. The hunted Omega, the anomaly, the threat. Every few seconds, static interference crawled over the drone feed, as if the city's network itself couldn't process her. When the convoy reached Kyle Tower, the gates opened without a sound. The guards led her inside, through marble halls and mirrored corridors. The air smelled faintly of ozone and wolf pheromone suppression tech. Expensive, clinical, sterile. She was taken to an elevator that had no buttons. It rose automatically, glass walls revealing the city shrinking below. Her pulse jumped again. Somewhere between the 100th and 200th floor, the lights flickered. For half a second, her reflection in the glass shifted. Eyes glowing amber. The scent suppressants were failing. When the doors opened, Damien Kale was waiting. He stood by the panoramic window, hands clasped behind his back, city lights reflecting off his suit. Everything about him was composed, engineered, from the black neural cuff on his wrist to the faint glow under his skin that marked his controlled alpha gene. He didn't turn when the guards announced her presence. She's the one, sir. He finally turned, slowly. His eyes were sharp silver, the kind that saw patterns and lies, heartbeat changes, hidden truths. They met hers, and in that instant the air between them changed. The neural sensors in the room glitched, flickering red before stabilizing. Ariana's breath hitched. His presence pressed against her senses like heat. She expected him to order her execution. Instead, he studied her in silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, controlled, dangerous. Unregistered Omega, he said. 12 years off-grid, no scent record, no family file. He paused, eyes narrowing. How? Ariana didn't answer. She stared back, trembling but unbroken. He smiled slightly, a calculated motion that didn't reach his eyes. Interesting, he said softly. The others begged. He walked closer, close enough that she could see the faint data glow on his cuff reading her pulse rate. It spiked again and the device overloaded, blinking white. His expression changed. Impossible, he muttered. He turned away, pacing once. Your vitals are syncing with mine. Her breath caught. What does that mean? He looked back at her, expression unreadable. It means, he said quietly, you don't belong in the system. The guards shifted nervously. Damien reached for the neural communicator on his desk. His voice went live through the citywide network, smooth as glass, every syllable deliberate. Citizens of Nova Metropolis, he said. Tonight, an anomaly stands before me. An Omega without a tag. A ghost the system couldn't see. He glanced back at Ariana, eyes darkening. So here's my decree. Survive a night in my bed. He paused just long enough for the city to hold its breath, and I'll let her go free. The feed cut. Ariana's eyes widened, not in fear, but disbelief, because in that moment, she realized the truth. This wasn't a punishment. It was a test. And somehow he already knew she'd pass it. The silence that followed his words was heavier than sound. Every screen in Nova Metropolis froze on the same image, the Omega standing in the Alpha King's office, her wrists bound, her face unreadable. Then came the chaos. News drones scrambled to dissect his statement. PACs debated it live. Human networks speculated on ethics, dominance laws, and the psychology of an Alpha King testing an Omega. The city burned with curiosity and outrage, not because of the command itself, but because of how calmly he'd said it. In the tower, the feed cut. The glass walls dimmed automatically, sealing the room in muted blue light. Ariana stood there, every muscle locked, her pulse screaming in her ears. She didn't understand what game he was playing, but the weight of his stare told her this wasn't about humiliation. This was something deeper. Damien turned away from the window, his reflection shattering across the glass like fractured light. "Take her to the upper level," he said quietly. "Observation Chamber 1. The guards hesitated. Even they weren't sure what he meant. But his voice allowed no argument. They dragged her toward the elevator. Ariana didn't resist this time. Her mind was spinning too fast. She replayed his words in her head. Survive a night in my bed. Not submit. Not sleep. Survive. The elevator doors sealed, rising through a maze of glass and steel. As the city lights bled upward, Ariana caught her reflection again, eyes still glowing faintly amber. Whatever suppression tech he was using couldn't fully hide what she was anymore. When the elevator stopped, she was pushed into a long hallway lined with transparent walls. Inside each room, machines hummed, cold, sterile, mechanical. This wasn't a palace. It was a lab disguised as luxury. At the end of the hall, a door slid open. Inside, the bedroom wasn't a room at all. It was a psychological control chamber, soundproof glass, biometric panels, thermal sensors, and one large observation window that looked more like an interrogation screen than a mirror. The guards unbound her wrists. The door sealed behind them with a hiss. For a moment she stood alone, and then, through the intercom, his voice filled the room, low, even, stripped of any performative tone. "You think I offered you this for spectacle," Damien said, "but you've misunderstood, Omega. This isn't punishment, it's research." Ariana looked up toward the mirrored wall. "You're experimenting on me." "Observation," he corrected. "You survived off-grid for 12 years. You shouldn't exist. Your blood disrupted every sensor in this tower. And when I touched you..." His voice dropped slightly. "My vitals collapsed. No Omega has ever affected an Alpha's neural sync. I want to know why." She stepped closer to the glass. "You could just ask." He almost smiled. "Would you tell me the truth?" The lights dimmed further. A faint hum built in the floor. Ariana felt it, a vibration pulsing through her bones. Something in the air shifted, magnetic, primal, biological. "Begin the calibration," he said. On the other side of the wall, technicians activated a sequence of energy fields. Waves of faint scent frequencies filled the chamber, synthetic pheromone strands designed to simulate Alpha command. But instead of suppressing her, the air around her thickened, and the sensors started to malfunction. Her body wasn't reacting like a normal Omega. The suppression field destabilized. Inside the control room, Damien's monitors flashed red. "She's overriding the scent inhibitors," one technician said, panicked. "That's not possible," another whispered. Damien leaned forward, eyes locked on her image. Ariana stood in the middle of the room, head tilted slightly, as if listening to something only she could hear. Her pulse was steady. Too steady. "Her heartbeat isn't syncing with the control frequency," the lead tech reported. "It's creating interference." "Interference?" "Yes, sir. It's feeding back into your vitals." Damien looked down at his wrist monitor. His heart rate was spiking in rhythm with hers. Every time her pulse quickened, his did too. And then, for the first time in years, he felt something impossible. A flash of pain behind his eyes, sharp and metallic. He wiped his nose instinctively. His hand came back red. The room fell silent. "Sir?" the technician whispered. "You're bleeding." Damien didn't answer. His gaze stayed fixed on Ariana. Inside the chamber, she could feel it too. Something invisible linking them, a current of static heat crawling under her skin. The lights flickered again, this time in sync with her breathing. "Stop the sequence," he ordered. The tech hesitated. "Sir, the system's not responding." "Then shut it down manually." Sparks burst from the console as the room's electromagnetic field overloaded. Ariana fell to her knees, gasping as blue light rippled across her body. For one terrifying instant, her eyes turned fully amber. The power cut. Silence. Smoke drifted through the observation glass. Damien pushed past the technicians, ripping open the security door. The smell of ozone and blood filled the air. He found her kneeling on the floor, trembling but conscious. Her voice was hoarse. "You're bleeding." He wiped his face again. More blood. "So are you." She looked down. A faint streak of red trailed from her nostril. Their eyes met, both realizing the same thing. Their bodies had synchronized on a biological level. Whatever link had sparked between them wasn't dominance. It was data exchange. Molecular, involuntary, and forbidden. Damien stood there, breathing hard. His pulse wouldn't settle. The room still hummed faintly with the echo of her heartbeat. He whispered, almost to himself, "You're not just Omega." Her reply came quiet, measured, dangerous. "Then stop calling me one." He stared at her, at the defiance, the quiet fire, the unexplainable connection pulsing between them. For the first time in his reign, the Alpha King didn't feel in control. He turned away before anyone could see the look in his eyes. "Get her cleaned up," he ordered the guards. "And no one touches her blood." As they moved to escort her out, Ariana caught a final glimpse of him through the smoke. Standing alone, blood still running from his nose, eyes unfocused as if he was listening to something far away. She didn't realize it yet, but he was. He was hearing her heartbeat. Every beat, every rhythm, every silent question echoing inside his chest. And it terrified him. Technicians worked in silence, rerouting power, resetting systems that had no explanation for what just occurred. The report used words like biofeedback loop, neural interference, and genetic anomaly. But none of those terms fit the truth, that an Omega and an Alpha had synchronized on a molecular level. Something forbidden, something alive. Ariana sat in a glass isolation cell, wrists resting loosely on her knees, eyes locked on the mirrored wall. Her mind wasn't racing anymore. It was empty, quiet, as if her body was still adjusting to whatever had happened inside that chamber. The metallic scent of ozone clung to her hair. Through the mirrored glass, Damien watched her. He had changed clothes. Black shirt, sleeves rolled up, a faint crimson stain still visible where his nose had bled earlier. His expression was unreadable, but the tension in his jaw gave him away. He wasn't angry. He was curious, dangerously curious. "Vitals?" he asked without turning. His lead tech swallowed hard. "Yours or hers, sir?" "Both." The technician hesitated. "Yours are still linked, even with the systems offline. Every time she shifts posture, your neural frequency adjusts by 0.03 milliseconds. That shouldn't be possible." Damien exhaled slowly, his eyes flicking back to her silhouette through the glass. "And her readings?" "Stable. Too stable." He frowned. "Meaning?" "She's not showing the stress levels of a normal Omega. No suppression side effects. No hormonal fluctuations. It's like her body's rewriting its baseline code as we record." He turned then, his silver gaze cutting through the smoke-filled lab. "Bring me inside." "Sir, that's not advised." He silenced the tech with a look. "If my biology is already syncing with hers, containment protocols are irrelevant. I need to know what she is." The door hissed open and the air between them changed instantly. The faint, unseen current that had sparked during the collapse flared again, heat meeting static, control meeting defiance. Ariana didn't move as he entered. She only said quietly, "You bleed every time you look at me." He stopped a few steps away. "You noticed. I notice everything. For the first time, a ghost of a smile crossed his face. Then you already know I'm not here to hurt you. She tilted her head, voice steady. People always say that before they do. He watched her, calculating, then moved to the small console in the wall. I want to show you something, he said, tapping a code. The glass around them shifted, turning translucent. Through it, she could see hundreds of screens, each displaying her vitals beside his. Every pulse spike mirrored, every heartbeat aligned. The image looked like two lives breathing through the same signal. That's you, he said softly. And that's me. Ariana stepped closer, her reflection layered with his across the glass. So what? You think that means something? It means everything, he replied. According to genetic law, alphas and omegas can't synchronize. One leads, one follows. You've broken that rule without effort. She frowned. Maybe your system's wrong. He smiled faintly. Maybe you are. The words hung between them, heavy, electric. Then he activated a command on the console. The glass room reconfigured, walls folding inward slightly. A low hum filled the space as faint silver vapor drifted from vents above, a carefully calibrated pheromone field used in alpha-omega testing. Stop, she said instantly. He didn't. I want to see what your body does when exposed. The air thickened. Her chest tightened. For most omegas, this would trigger automatic submission, a biological shutdown under alpha pheromone density. But Ariana didn't collapse. She stood still, eyes locked on him, breathing unevenly, but steady. After a full minute, she took a step forward. Is this supposed to make me afraid? She asked quietly. No, Damien said. It's soap. The words weren't dominance and they were data. He was testing a theory. Yet the moment he said them, his neural monitor spiked, the lights flickering as both their vitals surged together. Ariana gasped as a rush of heat shot through her body, not arousal, but raw energy. The pheromone field reversed polarity, drawn into her instead of suppressing her. The system overloaded again. Sparks burst from the console. Technicians shouted through the comm. Sir, disconnect the field. Damien didn't move. His nose started bleeding again, but this time he ignored it. He was watching her, transfixed, as the vapor curled toward her skin like threads of light and vanished. And then, silence. The hum stopped. The field neutralized itself. Ariana exhaled, trembling but still standing. The glass walls cleared, revealing the stunned faces of his entire tech team. Damien spoke without looking away. Everyone out. Sir? Now. The lab emptied within seconds. When the door sealed again, only the two of them remained. Ariana wiped her mouth, voice raw. Was that your idea of an experiment or torture? He stepped closer, his tone calm but low. Neither. It was proof. Of what? That whatever you are, your body doesn't obey the biological hierarchy. You absorbed my pheromones, inverted the signal, and reversed the command. You made me respond to you. Her expression changed. Disbelief, fear, realization. You're saying I controlled you? He shook his head slowly. Not consciously, but yes. And if anyone outside this tower finds out, you'll be dissected before morning. Her pulse jumped. Then why announce me to the world? Because, he said quietly, I needed them to look at me, not you. The city thinks I made you my plaything. It keeps the truth buried under spectacle. She stared at him, speechless. He leaned closer, eyes unreadable. You wanted to know why I offered you that night. It wasn't about power. It was containment. Containment? Yes. His voice softened, almost human. Because if your biology destabilizes again, it could rewrite every genetic code in this building, including mine. The words landed heavy between them. Ariana swallowed hard, her throat dry. So what happens now? He studied her, the faintest hint of conflict flickering behind his silver eyes. Now, I find out if you can control it. She looked away. And if I can't? He stepped back, voice steady. Then you won't survive the night. The room fell silent again. She turned to face the mirrored wall. But this time, she wasn't looking at her reflection. She was looking at him. Outside, the city was still awake, screens glowing with his earlier declaration, speculation flooding every corner of the digital world. But inside the penthouse, something else was unfolding, something unseen, intimate, and terrifying. The Alpha King wasn't in control anymore. The Omega wasn't the prey. And somewhere, deep inside the tower's neural grid, a heartbeat echoed through the system, two signals beating as one. The sensors blinked red across Damien's console. Warning, genetic link, active. He stared at the message until the letters blurred. Then, slowly, a thin line of blood slid from his nose again. He wiped it away, eyes darkening, and whispered to the empty room, "She's rewriting me." The tower's lights pulsed once, then everything went black. For 3 long seconds, silence ruled. No humming vents, no breathing machines, only the faint tick of Damien's heartbeat against the glass desk. Then the emergency grid roared back to life, bathing the entire penthouse in stuttering crimson light. On every monitor, the same words appeared. Network failure. External override. Damien straightened, confusion slicing through the fog in his head. Who authorized a feed reset? No answer. The comm line hissed with static. The citywide broadcast that had been looping his test vanished from every channel simultaneously. Even the encrypted network inside Kale Tower went dark. Someone had reached directly into the system core and pulled the plug. He tapped his wrist cuff. Nothing. Dead signal. Ariana felt it first. The shift in the air. The metallic pressure that always preceded danger. Something's wrong, she said quietly. Damien opened his mouth to reply, and then everything inside him short-circuited. His pupils contracted. The cuff on his wrist glowed white-hot. The biolink between them spiked into overdrive, flooding his nervous system with feedback. A blinding pain lanced through his skull. He staggered backward, one hand braced on the console, blood spilling from his nose again, thicker this time. Ariana rushed forward before she could think. Damien. No response. His knees hit the floor, body convulsing once, then still. The monitors around them went wild, his vitals plunging, hers surging. Damien! She grabbed his shoulders, shaking him, but his body was cold and damp, heartbeat shallow. She didn't know why she said his name. He'd never told her to use it, but it came out instinctively, almost like a command. Damien, wake up. His eyelids flickered. A whisper escaped his lips, faint and slurred. Ariana! She froze. He shouldn't know her name. She'd never said it. Not once. Outside the chamber, alarms erupted. Doors sealed automatically, metal shutters sliding down the windows. Security drones burst from their wall mounts, targeting the center of the room. Red beams locked onto her chest. Subject containment breach, an automated voice intoned. Lethal force authorized. Ariana's breath came fast and shallow. She crouched over him, trying to cover his body. No! One of the drones fired a stun pulse. The blast hit the floor beside her, shattering the glass tiles. Energy rippled outward, static crawling over her skin, and then something inside her snapped. Her vision tunneled. Her heartbeat thundered so loudly it drowned the alarms. Every pulse seemed to vibrate through the room, bending the red beams away from her. The next shot never landed. Instead, the drone short-circuited midair, sparks bursting from its sensors. Another followed, then another, until the entire squad of machines collapsed in smoking heaps. The lights flickered wildly, blue and white, reacting to her pulse rhythm. Ariana turned back to Damien. His body was still. She placed her palm against his chest, hesitant, trembling, and the moment skin met skin, the world tilted. A current leapt from her hand into him, not lightning, not energy, something deeper, biological, coded, alive. Damien's body arched once. His eyes snapped open, glowing silver so bright it flooded the room. Every monitor lit up at once, displaying lines of streaming code that had never existed in the database before. Genome signature, rewrite in progress. Ariana gasped as the current ripped through both of them. Images flashed in her head, memories that weren't hers. A boy standing in a lab, white coats, a needle sinking into flesh, someone whispering, "The alpha prototype will fail without the counterpart." She saw his past, and he saw hers. The connection broke with a violent jolt. Damien collapsed forward, gasping. Ariana fell beside him, dizzy, every nerve on fire. The red emergency lights dimmed back to steady white. The drones were gone. The tower was silent again. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Damien lifted his head slowly. His eyes were still faintly glowing, veins etched in silver light that pulsed beneath his skin. He looked at her, voice rough and disbelieving. "What did you do?" Ariana shook her head. "I don't know. You stopped breathing, He caught her wrist. His grip wasn't harsh. It was desperate. "My genome." He turned his wrist to show her the cuff display. The biometric code that had always identified him as Alpha Prime now blinked with an unfamiliar overlay. Hybrid variant, unknown. "You rewrote me," he whispered. "You changed my DNA." Ariana pulled back, horrified. "That's not possible." Damien's expression hardened, but not in anger, in awe. "It shouldn't be, but it happened." The main console flared to life again, flickering with static. An encrypted message appeared on screen. "The system is watching. Shut her down or we will." Damien read it once, then twice. His jaw clenched. "The council. They cut the feed," Ariana said quietly. "They wanted this hidden." He rose unsteadily, still bleeding faintly from the nose, and reached for a wall panel. "Not hidden," he said. "Controlled." He slammed his palm against the console. The entire penthouse sealed itself, going into manual lockdown. "If they think they can take you, they'll come with soldiers, not drones. We have minutes." Ariana backed away. "Why protect me? You said I could destroy everything you built." He turned toward her, eyes still faintly luminous. "Because maybe what I built deserves to be destroyed." The tension between them thickened, sharp and electric. Outside, the storm rolled in, rain slashing against the tower's mirrored walls. Lightning flickered across the skyline, illuminating two figures standing amid the ruin of shattered machines. Ariana finally spoke, voice low. "If you want to understand what's happening to us, you need to stop treating me like an experiment." Damien looked at her, breath uneven. "Then what are you?" She met his gaze, something defiant rising in her chest. "The consequence." He almost smiled, tired, blood-stained, but alive. Then, Ariana Vale. "Let's see what consequence feels like." Alarms began again, distant but growing louder, the sound of approaching security forces. The tower's outer defense lights flared red across the skyline. Damien wiped the last trace of blood from his mouth. "They're coming," he said. Ariana glanced toward the sealed elevator. "Then open it." He stared at her, then the screen flashing hybrid variant unknown. "If we leave this tower, the world will see what we are." She stepped closer, eyes unflinching. "Then let them." Outside, the storm swallowed the city in light. Hook. The elevator doors snapped open as the alarms reached a deafening pitch, and before the soldiers could breach the floor, Ariana grabbed Damien's wrist. The biolink surged again, brighter than before, rewriting every scanner in the corridor. For one heartbeat, the entire building registered the impossible. Alpha King, status, deceased. Then the system rebooted itself, showing a new entry instead. Entity ID 000, hybrid origin detected. Sirens rippled through Kale Tower like a heartbeat gone mad. The light strobed red, then white, then died again under emergency power. Damien and Ariana stood in the corridor, breath steaming in the cold air vented from the broken systems. For a split second the world was quiet, then boots thundered up the stairwell. Government SecOps. "Down!" a voice barked. Electric nets crackled across the hallway. Ariana tried to move, but a shock pulse slammed into her chest. Pain exploded behind her ribs. She hit the floor, convulsing. Damien spun toward her, baring teeth more out of instinct than control, but another blast hit him in the back. The energy field folded him to his knees. "Target acquired," one of the agents said, visor reflecting her limp form. "Omega subject alive." A black armored figure stepped through the smoke, the Council's field commander. His badge read, Biosec 02. He looked down at Damien, voice clipped and precise. "Alpha King Kale. By order of the Genetic Council, you are relieved of command until further notice. Subject Vale is classified as Biothreat Level 7. Damien's pulse monitor flickered red. "She saved my life," he rasped. "You don't even understand what she is." "That's exactly why she's being contained," the commander said. He gestured. "Load her." Two agents lifted Ariana's body onto a grav stretcher. The restraints glowed blue, reading her vitals, sedating her deeper with every beat. Damien tried to rise. 3 rifles tracked him instantly. "Move again," one agent warned, "and we drop you." He stopped, breathing hard. His eyes burned silver for half a second before he forced the instinct down. Rage wouldn't save her. Not yet. The aftermath hours later, the tower lay in lockdown. Windows boarded by security drones, corridors reeking of disinfectant and ozone. Damien sat alone in his private medical bay, shirt torn, chest wrapped where the stun charge had scorched him. His reflection in the glass looked almost human, except for the faint threads of silver still pulsing beneath his skin. The feed screens replayed fragments from the incident. The Council had already taken control of the narrative. Unstable Omega attack contained. Alpha King under observation. Lies stacked on lies. He opened the hidden partition on the desk and slid out a secure data drive. The footage from the lab still lived there. The moment her hand touched his chest, the surge of light, his heart restarting. He played it once. Her fingers brushed his skin. The monitors screamed to life. In slow motion, energy, pure alpha resonance, burst outward from her into him. He paused the frame. Every cell of him trembled. "Alpha energy from an Omega," he whispered. "Impossible." The door slid open behind him. His aide, Kellen, entered quietly. "They've taken her to Blacksite Haven, Level 9 containment. No external communication. Official reason: prevent cross-species contamination." "Cross-species?" Damien laughed once, short and bitter. "They talk like she's a virus." Kellen lowered his voice. "The Council has ordered all footage of the incident transferred to their servers." Damien looked at the paused image of her reviving him. "Then they'll know she can rewrite genetic code." "They already suspect it." He reached for the drive. "Then they'll never get the proof." The deletion. He slid the drive into the console, typed a command string only 2 people in the world knew. The system warned him, "Deleting this record violates National Security Statute 14B. He entered his override code anyway. One by one, the files dissolved into static. All that remained was a single line of metadata that couldn't be erased. Anomaly recorded. Source unknown. When it was done, he ejected the empty drive, snapped it in half, and dropped the shards into the sterilizer flame. The screen went black. Kellen stared. "You just committed treason." Damien's voice was low. "No, I just erased the reason they'll dissect her." The briefing room. Hours later, he stood before the Council via HoloLink. 12 figures, half human, half synthetic, shimmered in blue projection. The Central Elder, Maris Thorne, spoke first. "Alpha Kale, you've endangered the hierarchy. Your decision to publicize the Omega was reckless. Damien's expression stayed neutral. Transparency maintains order. Maris leaned forward. You lost control on live broadcast. Your vitals showed synchronization. Explain. Damien's gaze flicked briefly downward. Equipment malfunction. Then you deny genetic contamination? I deny nothing. I correct errors. A pause. Then another counselor. The subject is secured. She will be neutralized after analysis. The word neutralized stabbed through him, but he didn't blink. Then the council takes full responsibility for any instability that follows. What instability? Maris asked. The one you just created, Damien said. He ended the feed. Decision. The instant the holograms vanished, Damien exhaled sharply, every muscle tight. Kellen waited near the door. They'll strip your title for that. Let them. He picked up his jacket, blood-stained but wearable. Prepa stealth transport, no insignia. Destination? Black Site Haven. Kellen hesitated. That's council territory. I built half their security grid, Damien said. I know where it breaks. You can't go alone. He looked up, eyes steady and cold. I'm the only one she responded to. If I don't reach her first, they'll turn her into a weapon. Or an autopsy report. Kellen swallowed. Then what happens if you find her? Damien paused in the doorway. Then the council loses its leash. Black Site Haven. Far below the city, beyond the neon towers and surveillance satellites, a transport descended through layers of storm cloud. Inside, Ariana lay restrained inside a transparent capsule, pulse slow under chemical sedation. Tubes fed into her veins, drawing samples into silver-labeled vials. A robotic voice logged each reading. Cellular instability minimal. Recombinant potential high. Subject classified. Project Eden. Somewhere in the static between her dreams she heard a voice, Damien's voice, faint but distinct. Ariana, breathe. Her pulse spiked once, confusing the monitors. The technician frowned. Odd. Neural echo. He made a note, unaware that miles above, in the shadows of the storm, a black aircraft broke formation and turned toward the same facility. Inside its cockpit, Damien adjusted the stealth controls. The radar blinked warning red, but he didn't care. His hands shook slightly on the throttle. Silver veins still glimmered faintly beneath his skin. He whispered to himself, almost as if to steady the thought. She saved me once. My turn. He accelerated into the dark. The camera feeds inside Black Site Haven glitched as his aircraft vanished from radar. In the command center, alarms flashed. Unauthorized craft detected. Biosignature unknown. The officer leaned toward the monitor, confused. Signature reads Alpha, but mutated. Somewhere above the facility, lightning forked across the sky in twin bursts, one silver, one gold, before the entire feed went black. Rain hammered the desert plain above Black Site Haven. The facility was a scar in the sand. No windows, no noise. Only a pulse of red lights hidden beneath layers of concrete and static camouflage. Deep below, in a sterile room washed in white light, Ariana Vale lay motionless inside a containment capsule. The hum of the machines around her sounded like distant thunder. Tubes coiled from her arms into nutrient lines. A visor fed images directly into her cortex. Monitors whispered numbers that even the technicians didn't understand. Subject E7 neural pattern stabilizing, one said. Prep her for Phase 2 sequencing, another replied. They never noticed the faint shimmer across her skin, the way her pulse rate matched the rhythm of the storm above. At OR 317, the power grid flickered. The technicians froze. Did you see that? Probably a surface surge. Run diagnostics anyway. They didn't know what was happening outside the perimeter, how a black craft cut through the rain, cloaked in radar silence. Nor did they know that the man flying it had already overridden 3 layers of council encryption with his own blood. Inside his cockpit, Damien Kale's veins still burned silver. His vision blurred, but his hands never left the controls. Almost there, he muttered. The nav system bled static. Every few seconds he saw her face flash in the noise, like an echo in his mind. Ariana. He pushed the craft lower, following the coordinates stolen from the Council's network. His pulse synced with the storm again. Below, alarms began to scream. Inside the lab, the technicians rushed to Ariana's capsule as the ceiling lights went out. Backup power kicked in, dim red like the glow of an open wound. The central monitor glitched, lines of alien code filling the screen. "System intrusion," one shouted. "Unknown access key. Seal the chamber." But it was too late. Ariana's eyes snapped open. For a moment they glowed not amber but a sharp fractured silver, mirroring the color that had bled into Damien's veins. The restraints around her wrists disengaged with a hiss. She sat up slowly, visor sliding from her face, tubes falling away. The nearest technician reached for a tranquilizer wand. "Stay where you are." She turned toward him. The command died in his throat. His visor read her vitals, then froze, every digit scrambled. The wand sparked out. He backed away, hands shaking. What are you?" Ariana didn't answer. She stepped down from the capsule, bare feet touching the cold tile. Each step she took reprogrammed the floor's biometric sensors, turning red warning lines into green authorization marks. The building no longer recognized her as subject. It recognized her as system root. At the control panel, she found a glowing strip of neural keys, thin implants that authorized personnel carried behind their ears. She reached for the one the frightened technician had dropped. When she touched it, a surge of information poured into her head. Floor plans, clearance codes, security nodes. She blinked through the data, piecing together the map of the facility. There it was, Project Eden, a restricted sublevel under the medical ward, files locked behind 6 firewalls. She inserted the key into the nearest terminal and whispered, "Access." The screen unlocked instantly. Dozens of classified documents spilled across the display. She scrolled through line after line, her breath catching as she read, Project Eden. Objective: locate the dormant equalizer gene, predicted to terminate alpha dominance and restructure pack hierarchy on cellular level. Previous subjects, terminated. Viable candidate not found. Recent data suggests potential activation through controlled alpha exposure. Codename: Kale Protocol. Her hands trembled. The night test. It hadn't been about control at all. Damien's challenge, survive a night in my bed, had been designed to force her biology into contact with his. A field experiment disguised as spectacle. But if the goal was to locate the equalizer gene, then he'd succeeded. Because the gene wasn't lost. It was her. Footsteps thundered in the corridor. She ripped the neural key from the console and pressed it against the back of her neck. Pain lanced through her skull as the implant fused to her system, syncing her nervous output with the facility grid. Doors around her unlocked with a click. Security shouted. Energy bolts sliced the air. Ariana ducked behind a console, grabbed the tranquilizer wand from the floor, and fired blindly. The dart hit one guard in the chest. He dropped instantly. She sprinted through the open corridor, alarms echoing behind her. At every turn, scanners tried to identify her, and failed. She was rewriting them as she ran. Subject E7 is loose. She's overriding central control. Seal Section C. Too late. The elevator doors slid open before her. Inside, mirrored walls reflected a girl she barely recognized. Hair wild, hospital gown streaked with blood, eyes glowing like quicksilver lightning. The lift shot upward. Above ground. The moment the elevator breached the surface, the storm swallowed her. Rain hit her skin like needles. Floodlights from drones cut across the desert. She ran anyway across mud and broken concrete, barefoot, heartbeats sinking with thunder. In the distance, the black craft descended through the clouds, silent, sleek, alive. It landed hard enough to shake the ground. The ramp dropped, steam curling out like breath. Damien Kyle stepped through it. His uniform was gone, replaced by combat gear streaked with rain and ash. Silver light pulsed faintly under his skin, a mark of the change she'd made inside him. For a long second, neither moved. Wind howled between them. Then Ariana raised the stolen tranquilizer, hand trembling. "Stay back." He didn't. He walked forward, slow, unarmed. The light in his eyes wasn't dominance anymore, it was recognition. "I came to bring you out," he said. "You came to finish your experiment," she shot back. He shook his head. "You think I planned this? I wanted to find the equalizer gene, yes, but not like this." She laughed, sharp and broken. "Congratulations. You found it." He stopped a few feet away, rain streaming down his face. "You changed me, Ariana. My command pheromones are gone. I can't order anyone to obey. The hierarchy's already cracking." "Then maybe you deserve to fall," she said. "Maybe," he admitted. "But if they catch you, they'll splice your DNA until there's nothing left to save." She hesitated. Lightning split the sky behind him. His outline glowed silver against the black. He dropped to one knee, not in surrender but in something rawer, older, almost reverent. "What are you?" he asked. The question wasn't anger or curiosity. It was wonder. Ariana lowered the wand slowly. The storm hissed between them. "I don't know," she said. "But whatever I am, I'm not yours to control." He nodded once. "Then help me stop them." "Why would I trust you?" "Because," he said quietly, looking up at her, "I'm not the Alpha anymore." Thunder rolled. For the first time, the world above them smelled like freedom. Ozone, rain, and something burning far away. Sirens wailed in the distance, but neither moved. The wind whipped around them, carrying the metallic taste of change. Ariana looked down at the kneeling man who had once ruled every pack in the world and realized the hierarchy truly was breaking. Not by war, but by evolution. And somewhere beneath the storm, deep inside her blood, the equalizer gene pulsed awake. Satellite feeds across Nova Metropolis glitched simultaneously. The Council's encrypted network registered a new signature. Genetic Class Equilibrium Event, Origin Unknown. Inside Blacksite Haven's ruins, the surviving technicians stared at the data. One whispered, "It's begun." Far out in the storm, two figures disappeared into the night. One who had lost his power, and one who had never needed it. The storm didn't end when they escaped. It followed them. Hours later, the sky was still bleeding light over the desert highway. Damien's aircraft tore through the rain at low altitude, engines burning silent. Inside, the cabin smelled of ozone and blood. Ariana sat across from him barefoot, her hospital gown replaced by an oversized flight jacket. Her wrists were still raw from the restraints. Neither spoke. For the first time, she wasn't sure who the prisoner was. Damien kept his eyes on the horizon. The silver veins in his neck glowed faintly every time he clenched his jaw. Whatever she'd done to him was still rewriting him from the inside out. Finally, she broke the silence. "How long before the Council finds us?" "They already have," he said flatly. "But they won't shoot me down yet. They'll want to know why I'm not dead." She folded her arms. "You mean why I didn't kill you?" He glanced at her. "You could have. Back there. You didn't." "I didn't, because I still need answers." His mouth curved, not quite a smile. "Then we want the same thing." "No," she said. "You want control. I want truth." The aircraft rattled as turbulence hit. Rain streaked the windows like scratches. He slowed the engines and landed near a derelict airfield outside the city. When the hatch opened, wind screamed through the cabin. They stepped into the dark. Neon from distant towers glimmered on the horizon, the city pulsing like a heartbeat far away. Damien pulled a small device from his pocket and placed it on the hood of a rusted truck. It flickered to life, projecting a translucent data screen. Lines of code scrolled across it, thousands of files, records of experiments, genetic trials, missing omegas. "Everything the Council tried to bury," he said. "My personal archive. You want to know who created you? Help me stabilize this." He pointed to the faint light pulsing beneath his skin. Whatever's happening to me, it's spreading. My system's collapsing. Ariana stared at the data stream, then back at him. I'll help you, she said slowly, but not as your subordinate. I'm not your Omega. He nodded once. Then what are you? Your equal, she said. We work together, or not at all. He extended his hand. For a heartbeat she hesitated, then placed hers in it. The touch sent a small shock through both of them. Neither dominance nor surrender, just balance. She withdrew first. I'll need access to your neural link to trace the Council's data lines. That's dangerous, he said. I'm already dangerous, she answered. You just didn't realize it. He keyed a sequence on his wrist cuff. The projection changed, forming two glowing outlines, his and hers, connected by a pulsing thread of light. Neural sync in manual mode, he said. If either of us loses control, it severs automatically. Fine, she whispered. Let's see what you're hiding. The moment the sync engaged, the world blurred. Sound vanished. The air between them thickened until it felt like gravity itself bent inward. Ariana's eyes glazed silver. Damien's breath hitched. Images began to surface. Not hers, not his, but both. Memories bleeding into each other, merging, replacing. She saw his childhood. A boy locked inside a glass cell, scientists in white coats injecting liquid fire into his veins. She saw his first transformation, the pain, the silence afterward. The voice telling him he was chosen to restore order. He saw her memories too, but they didn't begin in a village or a home. They began under fluorescent light. A woman's voice whispering lullabies through a surgical mask. The smell of antiseptic. A crib surrounded by monitors reading, Subject A9. She gasped, clutching her head. The images kept coming. Rows of infants, identical faces, each one with a barcode burned into its ankle. Hers was the only one not crying. Damien staggered backward, disconnected the link, and the world snapped back into focus. What did you see? He asked, voice rough. She swallowed hard. I wasn't born. I was made. Rain drummed against the metal roof. For a moment, neither of them could speak. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. The government's breeding Omegas in labs? No, she said. They were breeding weapons. The equalizer gene wasn't lost. It was engineered. I was prototype number 9. Damien stared at her, realization dawning like fire. And the others? Dead. Or worse. He turned away, running a hand through his hair, pacing. If the Council built you, then they designed me to find you. Every order I gave, every test, it was programmed into my reign. Ariana's expression hardened. So you were part of it. I didn't know, he said. Not until now. She watched him struggle. The alpha who had ruled millions now bent under a truth he couldn't command. Then she said quietly, You want to fix your system? Then stop pretending you're in charge of it. He looked up at her, angry, ashamed, but also relieved. Then what do we do? She glanced at the glowing map hovering over the hood. We burn the chain. Start with whoever signed Project Eden. Damien zoomed the map closer. One name appeared in red at the bottom of the file. Dr. Maris Thorne, Council Chief Geneticist. The same man who had questioned him hours ago. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He made both of us. Wind whipped dust around them. The data map flickered. Somewhere in the static, a faint pulse of interference returned, an encrypted signal coming from the city. They're already moving her files, Damien said. Then we move faster, Ariana replied. He shut down the projector, stepped toward the aircraft, and for a brief instant caught her gaze. There was no hierarchy left between them now, only necessity and something unspoken growing under it. As they boarded, the engines ignited, blue light carving through the storm. Neither noticed that the neural cuffs on their wrists, though disconnected, still pulsed in unison. Night turned the city into a pulse of light and rain. Towers cut through low clouds like blades, each one carrying the council's insignia, 12 concentric rings representing control, order, obedience. Beneath them, traffic streamed in vertical lanes. Drones hovered like insects over the glowing grid. Somewhere in that maze sat the Genetics Bureau, the beating heart of Project Eden. Inside the aircraft, Ariana watched the skyline grow. Her reflection in the window looked calm, but her fingers were locked so tightly around the armrest her knuckles had gone white. Damien flew in silence, eyes darting between instruments and storm patterns. "You know they'll shoot us down the second we breach airspace," she said. "I shut down their targeting codes last year," he replied. "They think it's a software glitch." "You planned for this?" "I planned for everything. A beat. Just never for you." The craft slipped through the last layer of cloud, cloaking itself between skyscraper shadows. Below, the Bureau loomed, an obsidian block with no windows, its entrance buried beneath layers of biometric gates. Every scientist, guard, and drone inside carried a neural tag keyed to the Council's master frequency. Ariana reached into her jacket and pulled out a small silver disc, the neural key she'd stolen from Blackside Haven. "This still works," she said, "but I'll need your access pattern to get us past level 5. Damien hesitated. "That pattern's linked to my blood." "Then bleed," she said. He stared at her for a long second, then pricked his thumb on a microblade. The key pulsed once, absorbing the drop. The cockpit lights dimmed and the console registered a new hybrid code. Alpha Prime, Omega Variant Sync, active. They landed the craft on a maintenance platform, invisible to the cameras looping pre-recorded footage of empty night. The hatch opened with a hiss. Ariana stepped out first, hood drawn, rain soaking her hair. Damien followed, moving with the quiet precision of someone who knew every inch of the enemy's house. A single door waited at the end of the platform, unmarked steel, secured by dual retina scanners. She pressed the neural key against it. The lights flickered green. The door slid open. Inside, the Bureau was sterile and endless, white corridors, mirrored ceilings, the faint smell of antiseptic. They walked in silence until the sound of humming servers swallowed their footsteps. "Level 9 data vault," Damien whispered. "All classified projects end here." They reached a glass room filled with vertical drives, columns of light containing the history of the genetic age. Ariana approached a console. Her reflection wavered on its surface, then dissolved as she inserted the key. Lines of code erupted across the screens. "Authorization required," the system intoned. She looked at Damien. He placed his hand on the scanner. "Kale, Damien, Alpha Prime Authority." The console paused. "Welcome, Director Kale. Accessing Project Seraph." Ariana's breath caught. "Project Seraph?" The screen bloomed with documents, schematics, DNA charts, test records. She scrolled through line after line until the header appeared in red. Project Seraph, Omega Kingslayer Protocol. Objective: develop Omega-class subjects capable of neutralizing alpha control through genetic equalization. Status: terminated due to ethical violation. Primary authorization: Kale, Damien. Her hand froze on the console. "You signed this." Damien's voice dropped to a whisper. "That's not possible, the date." "It's dated 15 years ago," she said. "You would have been 20. He stared at the screen. The timestamp glowed against the cold light, his signature unmistakable. "I was in the program," he murmured. "Not running it." She turned on him. "Then how does your authorization approve it?" He opened another file. Video logs flickered. Young scientists. Lab rooms identical to the one from her fragmented memories. And in the center of one frame stood a boy strapped to a gurney, silver veins burning under his skin. Behind him, a digital signature read, "Subject A1, Kale Prototype." "They cloned you," she whispered. He shook his head, trying to process it. No, they grew me. The screen glitched, showing another infant unit, Subject A9, Veil prototype. Both files carried the same project leader tag, Thorn, Maris. Ariana's throat tightened. He created both of us under the same protocol. And then erased the evidence, Damien said. My memory, your records, it was all part of the control system. Keep the king loyal, keep the weapon contained. The room felt smaller, the air heavy with static. Alarms began to whisper in the walls. The Bureau had detected unauthorized access. We need to move, Damien said, closing the console. But Ariana didn't move. She was staring at the last line of the report. Subject A9 demonstrates emotional override capacity on Alpha Prime prototype. Bond effect permanent if triggered. Her pulse stuttered. Emotional override. That's what I did to you. He met her eyes. You rewrote command into connection. Then Project Seraph wasn't meant to end dominance. It was meant to enslave it differently. She looked sick. I wasn't the weapon. I was the leash. Damien reached for her hand. Not anymore. The alarms grew louder. Red lights chased across the ceiling. Security drones descended through vents, weapons charging. Damien drew his pistol, motioned her toward the exit. We take the central elevator, fastest way up. They ran, sirens screaming behind them. Shots burst through the hall, metal splintered. Ariana grabbed his arm and threw the neural key at the wall panel. The elevator doors opened instantly. They dove inside. As the lift shot upward, she turned to him, voice trembling. You signed the project that made me, Damien. You gave Thorn permission. I didn't know, he said. They used my genetic copy to sign approvals. They cloned my authorization like they cloned me. He looked away. That's why my system is failing. I was never whole. The elevator stopped at the roof. Wind and rain poured in. The aircraft waited, its engines humming faintly. Behind them, the Bureau's sirens echoed through the night. Ariana faced him, soaked and shaking. Now you know the truth. Your power, my existence, it's all the same lie. What happens when you can't tell which part of you is real? He stepped closer until the wind nearly drowned his voice. Then I'll believe the part that bleeds. Lightning flashed, silver reflected in both their eyes. He took her hand again, but this time she didn't pull away. As they climbed aboard, a satellite far above captured a still image of the Bureau's rooftop. Two figures, one Alpha, one Omega, vanishing into the storm. The file transferred directly to the Council's mainframe. Thorn watched the image load on his monitor, expression unreadable. Phase 2 confirmed, he said to the darkness. They're finally working together. He closed the feed. The screen blinked once, saving the file under a new title. Project Seraph. Reactivated. The city burned beneath the clouds. Columns of smoke curled up through the rain, reflecting red against the belly of the storm. From the cockpit, Ariana could still see the Bureau collapsing in on itself, a silent scar disappearing under lightning. She should have felt free. Instead, she felt hollow. Damien flew in silence, hands steady on the controls. The silver glow under his skin was dimmer now, fading like a dying current. Each breath looked like it hurt. Finally, she said it. Flat, sharp, no hesitation. You lied to me. He didn't look at her. About what? About everything. Her voice cracked. About the project. About why you found me. You said you didn't know what I was, but your name, your signature was on the file. Damien's grip on the controls tightened. I saw it too. You signed the order, Damien. I was a soldier back then. His words came low, almost drowned by the rain against the hull. Before the crown, before the council gave me the throne. They told me I was authorizing a genetic stabilizer program, a cure for rogue transformations. He turned toward her, eyes tired. I didn't know they were using living Omegas. Convenient, she said. He flinched at the word. You think I wanted this? You think I'd have agreed to breed people like machines? You already did. Her voice trembled. You built a kingdom on it. The silence after that felt heavier than the storm. Damien cut the engines to hover. The hum faded until only the thunder remained. He stood, shoulders rigid, staring out the windshield at the glow of the city. I remember signing the authorization, he said, but I never saw what came after. The council buried the truth, then gave me power built on their lies. Every law I enforced, every pack I ruled, was engineered control. He turned slowly. If you want someone to hate, hate me, I deserve it. Ariana shook her head. You don't need my hate, Damien. You already live in it. She pushed past him, heading for the hatch. Open the ramp. It's still 200 meters to the ground. I'm not asking twice. He hesitated, then hit the control. Wind and rain screamed into the cabin. She stood at the edge, jacket whipping, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Where will you go? He shouted. Anywhere you're not. She jumped. She hit the sand hard but rolled, adrenaline burning through her veins. The storm swallowed her instantly, lightning slicing open the night. Behind her, the aircraft hovered for a heartbeat, then veered away. Every step she took into the desert should have felt like escape. Instead, something inside her chest burned, sharp, electric. Her pulse began to sync with another rhythm not her own. Her wrist cuff blinked red. Damn it, she whispered. The neural sync from the earlier experiment wasn't gone. It had never disconnected. A dormant implant, deep in her spinal column, reactivated when she hit the ground. It reached for the only signal it recognized. Damien's. Far above, in the cockpit, Damien gasped. His hands flew to his chest as a surge ripped through him, stealing the air from his lungs. Monitors exploded in static. The aircraft lurched sideways. He dropped to his knees, choking. Every muscle in his body locked. His vision flooded with light, her heartbeat, her panic, her pain. Ariana. He managed to breathe. The link tightened like a wire. He could feel her running, the slap of her bare feet against wet sand, the taste of blood in her mouth. Every sensation bled into him until he couldn't tell where she ended, and he began. Ariana stumbled, clutching her head. Stop, get out of my mind. She fell to her knees, pressing her palms into the dirt. The sand around her trembled, vibrating with residual energy. Sparks raced under her skin. Stop it! Her scream echoed through the storm, but the sound carried inside Damien's skull. His aircraft pitched downward. Warning lights flared. He slammed a fist against the console, forcing the link open through sheer will. You're killing us both. I didn't mean, she gasped, voice breaking into static. He bit down, blood between his teeth. Focus on my voice, breathe with me. For a moment there was only chaos, two pulses overlapping, thunder matching their rhythm. Then, slowly, the feedback began to fade. The pain thinned into a dull ache, the connection loosening like a thread sliding free. Ariana collapsed forward, shaking. Damien slumped against the pilot seat, drenched in sweat. The link dimmed to a faint glow, still there but fragile, almost quiet. When he could finally speak, his voice was hoarse. What did you do? I didn't know it was still active, she whispered. When I left the lab, they must have installed a recall chip. It activates when I try to separate from you. He closed his eyes, realization crashing over him. A failsafe, to keep the weapon near its handler. Her expression twisted. I'm nobody's weapon. Then we'll cut it out, he said, pushing himself to his feet. We'll find where they buried the link. She looked up at him through the rain, eyes bright with anger and something like grief. You can't fix what you made. He stepped closer, ignoring the weakness in his legs. Maybe not, but I can keep you alive while you try. She turned away, the wind whipping her hair across her face. You think I need saving? I think you're scared, he said quietly, and I think you have every reason to be. For a heartbeat, she froze. The storm eased. just enough for him to see her expression soften, something fragile breaking through the steel. Then she started walking again, deeper into the dark. He didn't chase her this time. He just watched, one hand pressed against his chest where her heartbeat still echoed faintly inside him. When she disappeared into the storm, he whispered, barely audible, "Then run, Ariana. I'll follow the pain." By morning, the storm was gone. The desert lay silent except for the wreckage of an aircraft half buried in sand. A single data shard flickered on the console, replaying the bureau file she'd seen, his signature glowing red. Damien stared at it until the screen blurred. Guilt felt heavier than the metal under his feet. He closed his fist and crushed the shard, shards of glass and light scattering into the wind. Above the horizon, the first sunlight hit the city towers. The council's broadcast system came alive again, a calm synthetic voice echoing across every frequency. Subject Vale confirmed rogue. Genetic instability detected. Termination protocol approved. Damien looked up at the transmission tower far away, jaw tightening. "They won't touch her," he said. Then he turned toward the east, the direction she'd gone, and started walking. Miles away, Ariana reached the edge of an abandoned industrial zone. The link between them flickered once more, a faint echo pulsing under her skin. She pressed her hand to her chest, whispering to the empty air, "Stay out of my head, Damien." But even as she said it, she felt his heartbeat answer, and she realized with horror that if she ran too far, it might stop his heart completely. The sun crawled over the horizon, slow and blood-red. Nova Metropolis looked calm from a distance, glass towers shining, transport lines glittering. But underneath, the city was splitting open. Every omega in the lower sectors woke to the same signal, a vibration in their veins, a low-frequency hum that started just before dawn. It wasn't loud. It was cellular, the sound of chains loosening. Someone recorded the first seizure on a street camera, a factory worker dropping to her knees, eyes flashing silver for 3 seconds before stabilizing. Then she stood up different, taller, stronger, eyes clear. Within hours, the clip spread through every back-channel feed. By noon, whole neighborhoods were in motion. Omegas tearing off suppressor collars, packs breaking rank. The council's control pheromones no longer worked. Broadcast commands fell into static. The impossible had happened. Alphas could bleed, and Omegas had seen it. Damien reached the city perimeter at sunrise. Dust clung to his boots, exhaustion to his face. Kellen met him at the safe house door, eyes wide. "You made it out alive." "Define alive," Damien said. He stepped inside. Screens lined the walls, each showing different districts erupting in chaos. Fires, protests, chants. "We are not prey." Kellen gestured to one feed. "It started 6 hours ago. The whole south sector's in revolt. They're calling her the Proof." "Ariana," Damien murmured. "She's a myth to them now," Kellen said. "They think she killed you." Damien stared at the screens. "That's exactly what the council wants them to think." Kellen nodded grimly. "They've announced your successor, Synthetic Alpha Initiative, a line grown in labs, coded for obedience. No emotion, no weakness. They're replacing me with a machine." "They already did," Kellen said quietly. "The prototypes deploy tonight." Damien's hands clenched. "Where's the broadcast hub?" "Same as always, Council Tower." He turned for the door. "Get me access to their schedule." "You're walking into a death sentence." "Maybe," Damien said, "but I won't let them rewrite the world again." Across the city, Ariana watched the same news from an abandoned rooftop. She wore scavenged clothes, hood low, eyes fixed on the broadcast repeating across every screen. Damien Kale, declared deceased. His image flickered like a ghost under the council's emblem. She should have felt vindicated. Instead, she felt the faint pulse of their link under her skin. Alive. Distant. Below, crowds filled the streets. Omegas, hybrids, even humans angry at decades of manipulation. Hand-painted banners read, Break the hierarchy. Others bore her face, pulled from old surveillance feeds. She whispered to herself, "You turned me into a symbol." A figure stepped from the shadows behind her. Tall, cloaked, voice low. Not him. Us. Ariana spun, ready to fight, but the stranger raised both hands. The hood fell back. A woman, mid-30s, eyes silver like Ariana's. "You're not alone," the woman said. "The surge reached all of us. I felt it. You're the signal." "I didn't want this," Ariana said. "Neither did we. But now we can choose." She stepped closer. "The council calls us defective. You made them afraid. That's enough to start a war." "I don't want war. It's already here." The woman handed her a comm device. "They're broadcasting the new alpha tonight. Synthetic. No heart. They'll use your name to crown him. We can stop it, but we need bait." Ariana's throat tightened. "You mean me?" "You appear on their network. Draw Kale out. The rebellion kills him on live feed. The world sees the old regime end." Ariana felt the air shift, the faint sting of the link on her wrist. "You think killing him fixes anything? It gives us power?" She looked down at the chanting crowd. "Power built on blood is still a cage." But the woman only said, "Cages are all we know." Then she disappeared into the crowd, leaving the comm blinking in Ariana's hand. That night, the council tower blazed like a beacon over the ruined streets. Inside, technicians prepared the live stream, the unveiling of the synthetic alpha. Rows of uniformed soldiers lined the stage. Maris Thorne watched from the control booth. Calm, precise. "Ensure the network carries every feed," he ordered. "The people will witness rebirth." "Sir," an aide said, "we've detected rogue broadcast interference. Sector 9 rooftops." Thorne smiled thinly. Let her speak. Let the myth deliver herself. On the rooftop, Ariana stood before a stolen camera rig. The rebellion team wired the comms, whispering through earpieces. "You're live in 30 seconds. She stared into the lens, rain slicking her hair, city lights burning behind her. Somewhere in the static she could still feel Damien's heartbeat, faint but there. The red light blinked. Live. She drew a slow breath. "This is Ariana Vale," she began. "They told you we were born to obey. They told you power was decided by blood. But blood changes." Below, thousands watched on cracked screens. Even the council feeds couldn't cut the signal fast enough. "I'm not here to lead you," she said. "I'm here to tell you the truth. They built both sides of this war. Alphas and Omegas. Manufactured. We were never free because we were never meant to be." In the control room, Thorne leaned forward. "Keep her talking," he said. "Trace the source." But something else happened. Every monitor began to show two signals instead of one. Hers, and another emerging beside it. Damien's image, grainy, blood-streaked, live from the outskirts. He stepped into view. "Ariana, stop." The crowd roared. The rebellion operators froze. She whispered, "How did you find me?" "The link," he said. "You activated it when you went live." "You shouldn't be here." "You shouldn't be their weapon," he shot back. "They'll use you to kill me on air." Her eyes widened. "You knew?" "I know Thorne," he said. "He needs a spectacle. The myth has to destroy the king so the machine can replace him." Across the plaza, Thorne watched the split-screen feed with satisfaction. "Perfect," he murmured. "Begin targeting sequence." Security drones lifted from the tower roof, locking onto Damien's coordinates. Snipers readied. The rebellion members whispered in Ariana's ear, "Say the word, and we take the shot." She stared into the camera, into him. "If I don't say it, they'll kill me instead." "Then say nothing," he said. Lightning flashed between them, two storms facing each other across the skyline. Below, the crowd's chant built to a single word. "Equalize, equalize." Thorne raised his hand. "Fire on my mark." Ariana felt the heat of the targeting beams crawl across her skin. The link pulsed hard, his pain already bleeding into hers. Damien, if they kill you, the system resets. The machines take over. And if they kill you? He asked. Then the world forgets we ever bled. The comm in her ear hissed. Mark confirmed, fire. She tore the earpiece out, voice raw. Stop. For an instant, everything froze. The drones, the snipers, even the crowd below. As the link between them exploded into full activation, a blinding surge of light bridged the distance, connecting their biosignatures across the network feed. Every screen in the city went white. In that whiteout, for one breathless second, everyone felt it. Alpha and Omega, human and hybrid, the same pulse through their hearts. Equality, pure and terrifying. When the feed returned, the drones were falling from the sky, systems fried. Damien was on his knees, blood running from his nose, alive. Ariana was gone. The cameras caught the last frame, silver light fading where she had stood. Hours later, in the council's control room, Thorne replayed the footage frame by frame. He stopped on the last flicker of her image, Ariana dissolving into static, and smiled. She's not dead, he said. She triggered the network. Behind him, the new synthetic alpha prototypes opened their eyes for the first time. Their pupils glowed silver. When the light collapsed, the world forgot how to breathe. For almost a full minute, every network, every drone, every security system in Nova Metropolis stayed blind. Then the static cleared, revealing streets littered with glass, sirens wailing, and the faint metallic scent of ozone that clung to the air like blood. Ariana woke to darkness. Her body ached, her skin cold and slick. The room smelled of metal and oil. Faint light spilled through a grid in the ceiling. She tried to move. Chains rattled. Her wrists were bound to a metal chair. A voice drifted out of the shadows. Welcome back, Savior. She squinted. A woman stepped into view, the same rebel who had approached her on the rooftop. Her hood was gone. Her silver eyes gleamed with fanatic calm. You disappeared mid-broadcast, the woman said. Half the world thinks you died. Perfect martyrdom. Ariana pulled against the cuffs. Where am I? Below the river, the woman replied. Old subway tunnels. We built our new headquarters here. The council won't risk coming this deep. Then what do you want from me? Your blood. The woman smiled faintly. It's the key to ending the hierarchy for good. Ariana's stomach turned. You think you can control what happened on that broadcast? We don't need control, just amplification. The woman motioned, and two rebels wheeled in a steel capsule. Transparent walls filled with swirling chemical mist. Tubes coiled like veins inside it. A pheromone bomb. You triggered the pulse once. Your blood carries the frequency. One drop, broadcast across the city, and every alpha will collapse. And every omega near them will die, Ariana said quietly. The woman's smile didn't fade. Freedom has a cost. Ariana felt the old fear slide down her spine, cold, sharp, familiar. You're becoming what you hate. The woman leaned close, voice like a whisper. Hate built us. You just gave it a name. Far above the tunnels, Damien woke in a medical bunker. The monitors around him buzzed faintly. Half of them still registered static. His body shook with aftershocks of the surge. Kellen stood beside him, bandages around his own arm. You stopped the broadcast, Kellen said. Or she did. Hard to tell anymore. Where is she? Damien's voice came out hoarse. Kellen hesitated. Rebels took her. South tunnels. They think her blood's a weapon. Damien pushed himself upright. The effort ripped through his chest, his veins still glowing faint silver, patterns shifting like cracks in glass. If they detonate a pheromone bomb with her DNA, it won't just kill alphas. It'll melt every nervous system in the radius. Then it's genocide. Exactly. He swung his legs off the cot. Get the aircraft ready. You can't even stand. I don't need to stand to kill Thorne's shadow army. He pulled on his jacket, eyes burning. She's the only one who can stop what they've started. Kellen didn't argue again. In the tunnels, Ariana fought the restraints until her wrists bled. The capsule hummed beside her, charging. The rebels prepared IV lines, siphoning blood from her arm into a network of tubes feeding the bomb. With each pull, she felt weaker, dizzy, her pulse syncing with the machine's rhythm. "Stop," she gasped. "You'll kill everyone." "That's the idea," the leader said softly. The world narrowed to the steady beep of the heart monitor and the hiss of the siphon. Then, sudden silence. The tunnel lights flickered. A faint vibration rolled through the floor, like distant thunder underground. One rebel glanced toward the entrance. "What was that?" Another followed, uneasy. Sounded like the ceiling exploded. Concrete rained down. Smoke filled the chamber. Through it, a figure dropped from above, cloak torn, eyes burning silver. Damien hit the ground hard, one knee bent, rifle already drawn. He fired once. The nearest guard fell. Then another. The blast waves threw the others back into the walls. Ariana blinked through the haze. "Damien!" He cut her chains with one clean burst of plasma. The metal hissed, falling away. She collapsed into his arms, too weak to stand. "You came," she whispered. "Not to save you," he said, voice rough. "To stop them." He looked up. The capsule was still glowing, pressure building. The rebels scrambled to recover, weapons raised. Damien shoved Ariana behind a column and took the brunt of the return fire. Energy bolts seared his shoulder. He didn't flinch. "Shut it down," he shouted. "I can't, my blood's already inside it," she yelled back. He crossed the room in seconds, grabbed the main power conduit, and ripped it free. Sparks tore through his hands, the current racing up his arms. The glow beneath his skin flared violently, silver turning white. The overload knocked half the rebels unconscious, but the surge didn't stop. It flowed into him, feeding on the hybrid energy she'd left in his body. "Damien, let go," Ariana screamed. He didn't. His eyes rolled back as the light spread across his chest. The walls shook, the air burned with ozone. He tore the power core from the capsule and hurled it down the tunnel. The detonation echoed like thunder miles away. When the smoke cleared, most of the rebels were gone. Some fled, some lying motionless. The capsule lay shattered, its contents vaporized. Damien was on his knees beside it, blood streaming from his nose, breath ragged. Ariana crawled to him. "Damien." He looked at her dazed, eyes no longer silver but deep white, like frost. "It's not stopping." "What isn't?" "My system." His hand trembled. "You rewrote it once. The overload woke what's left. The alpha core, it's burning through me." She caught his face between her palms. "Then fight it." He smiled faintly, teeth red with blood. "That's the problem. It's stronger than me." The ground trembled again. His pulse thundered, shaking the walls. The silver veins under his skin began to twist outward, glowing brighter, brighter, until the light was blinding. Ariana shielded her eyes. "Damien!" he roared, a sound half human, half something ancient, primal. The energy burst out of him in a wave, tearing through the tunnel, scattering debris like leaves. Every system within a mile shorted out. Lights died. Silence followed. When the dust settled, he was still kneeling, but his chest no longer rose. The glow beneath his skin pulsed faintly, wild, uncontrolled, a storm caged in flesh. Ariana pressed her ear to his heart. The rhythm was there, but wrong, too fast, too strong, not his. She realized with horror that the alpha surge had become autonomous. It no longer needed his mind to control it. She touched his cheek. "I'm not losing you," she whispered. Somewhere above, sirens echoed, council forces closing in. She pulled herself up, dragging his limp body toward the service shaft. The light under his skin illuminated the tunnel like a dying star. Hours later, rain poured through a broken grate as Ariana emerged onto the surface. She laid him on the wet pavement, pressing both hands to his chest, trying to stabilize his breathing. Every touch sent sparks through her palms. The energy inside him recognized her, pulled toward her. "Come on," she whispered. "Don't let them take you from me now." Lightning flared overhead. The veins along his throat flared in response, glowing bright enough to reflect off the puddles around them. His eyes snapped open, white, feral, unseeing. He wasn't Damien anymore, not entirely. The primal core of the alpha had surfaced, raw instinct, pure dominance, detached from reason. His body jerked once, then stilled, breath coming in deep animal draws. She knelt beside him, terrified and awed. "What have they done to you?" He turned his head slowly toward her. For a heartbeat, she saw recognition flicker, then vanish under the pulse of the storm. She whispered, "I'll bring you back, I promise." Behind them, searchlights cut through the clouds. Council dropships descended on the ruins. She had minutes. She lifted his head into her lap, rain mixing with blood, and said softly, "You saved them. Now let me save you." The glow in his veins responded, pulsing once beneath her hands. In the command center miles away, Maris Thorne watched live satellite feeds of the explosion. Thermal scanners showed one living heat source radiating impossible energy levels. He smiled. "Subject A1 reactivated," he said. "The prototype has finally awakened." He turned to his aides. "Deploy containment teams. Bring the girl alive." On his monitor, the image zoomed in. Ariana kneeling in the rain, holding Damien's motionless body, his skin burning like a star. The rain never stopped that night. It came down like static, drowning out the sirens that cut across the city's skyline. Ariana knelt in the wreckage, cradling Damien's body. His skin glowed faintly beneath the surface, veins burning silver white, heartbeat erratic, dangerous. Searchlights swept past, but none saw her crouched in the shadows of a collapsed overpass. Her mind spun between fear and memory. The lab, the night he'd ordered her to survive in his bed, the way his eyes had burned then. Nothing like this. Now they weren't burning with power. They were burning themselves out. She pressed her hand to his chest again. The pulse hit like thunder through her palm. "You're not gone. You're just lost." The wind tore her words apart. She had no plan, no transport, no allies. Only one place left where she might still have control. Kale Tower, the sealed penthouse, the room where everything began, the place where the lab and the bed were the same thing. She dragged his body for hours through the storm. Streets burned, crowds rioted. The rebellion had turned into chaos. Packs fighting packs, drones hunting the survivors. By the time she reached the tower's lower gates, dawn was bleeding pale light across the ruins. The building recognized her biometrics instantly. Access granted. The system shouldn't have worked. She was rogue, wanted, erased from every registry. But some echo of her earlier override still lingered in the architecture. The tower belonged to her now as much as it had ever belonged to him. The elevator hissed open. She pulled Damien inside, soaked, trembling, blood-streaked. The doors sealed, rising silently through the floors. Every passing level reflected their warped reflections in the mirrored walls. An Alpha King turned weapon, and the Omega who had rewritten him. When the doors opened on the top floor, she almost couldn't step out. Everything was exactly as it had been that first night. The biometric bed still sat in the center of the glass chamber. The monitors lined the walls, dormant but waiting. The air smelled faintly of sterile metal and ghosted heat. The place wasn't just a room. It was an echo. She dragged him onto the bed, collapsing beside him. His breathing was shallow, his muscles twitching as the primal surge tore through his nervous system. The monitors came alive on their own. Alpha system failure. 3% stability. Ariana forced herself to focus. "If you lose control, you'll burn the whole city," she whispered. "But if I lose you?" Her voice broke. She shut her eyes. I can't lose you again. She searched the lab console, fingers trembling, trying to find a way to suppress the surge. But every file, every line of code came back corrupted. The system was too deep into meltdown. There was only one variable left that could alter his pulse. Hers. She stared at the heart monitor. 2 frequencies. His, erratic and violent. Hers, faint and slowing. If she could align them. She sat beside him, placing her palms against his chest, the same place she'd touched him the night she saved his life. Listen to me, she whispered. I'm here. You're not alone. For a moment, nothing. Then his head jerked, a growl tearing out of his throat. His eyes opened, pale, feral, not quite human. The bed restraints activated automatically, metallic arms locking around him. He thrashed against them, snarling, breath heaving. The monitors screamed warnings. Subject destabilizing. She didn't back away. Damien, she said softly, you told me to survive a night in your bed. Now it's your turn. He lunged forward, restraints groaning. She flinched but stayed. You can fight me, she said, voice shaking. But I'm not your enemy. His pulse spiked. The light beneath his skin flooded the room in white. The monitors glitched, sensors blew out. Stop fighting, she said again, louder this time. You're not supposed to dominate this. You're supposed to share it. Something in her tone, something raw, desperate, cut through the static inside his mind. The roaring in his chest faltered. She took a deep breath, then did the only thing she hadn't done the first time. She matched his rhythm. Every inhale, every tremor, every heartbeat. When his chest rose, she breathed with him. When his pulse jumped, she let hers chase it until the 2 frequencies collided, then merged. The monitors flickered. Biosync initiated. Energy surged between them, brighter than any surge before. It wasn't force meeting force. It was resonance. He strained against the restraints again, but not in violence. More like confusion, like something inside him didn't know how to hold the calm. Ariana leaned forward until her forehead rested against his. Stay here, she whispered. With me. The veins along his neck began to dim, white fading to silver, silver fading to faint blue. His breath steadied. Her own heartbeat slowed, matching his exactly. The monitor steadied, 2 flat lines pulsing in perfect rhythm. Do you feel that? She murmured. That's us. No hierarchy, no command, just equal. He opened his eyes. For the first time in hours, they looked human again. Ariana? She laughed softly through tears. Yeah, you remember your name this time. He blinked, dazed. What did you do? I stopped fighting, she said. You should try it sometime. He breathed out, a sound half laugh, half sob. You trapped us in here. I had to. The city isn't safe. You locked yourself in with a monster. She brushed his cheek. You're not a monster, just a mirror no one else could face. For a moment, neither spoke. Rain slid down the glass walls, streaking the city lights outside. The storm was quiet now, just a dull hum that felt almost peaceful. The monitors dimmed. System sync. Stable. He looked at her, voice unsteady. Ariana, if I lose it again. You won't, she interrupted. Because I won't let you. She shifted closer, lying beside him, their pulses still aligned through the monitor. The same bed that had once been a cage now felt like a heartbeat. He closed his eyes. You realize this is the same place you almost died. She smiled faintly. And now it's where you finally live. Outside, the storm light flickered through the glass, painting them both in soft silver. Neither knew if the peace would last an hour or a heartbeat, but for the first time, they weren't fighting for dominance or survival. Just balance. Miles below, in the council's control chamber, alarms began flashing red. A technician shouted, Sir, Kale Tower's penthouse just reactivated the neural sync protocol. Thorne leaned forward. Impossible. That room was sealed. Another feed opened. 2 pulse lines reading as one. He smiled slowly. So they merged frequencies. His hand hovered over the command console. Then let's see what happens when we break the connection. The storm outside had finally burned itself out. For the first time in months, the city was quiet. Too quiet. No drones. No sirens. Just rainwater sliding down glass like the city was trying to wash itself clean. Inside the penthouse, the monitors had stopped flashing warnings. 2 steady pulse lines glowed across the main console. One labeled Kyle, Damien, the other Vale, Ariana. Both identical, both alive, and neither human anymore. Ariana woke first. Her head rested against his shoulder, heartbeat sinking to the faint electric rhythm still humming through his skin. The restraints on the bed had melted during the surge. The metal now fused into strange, glass-like veins across the floor. She lifted her hand, studying her own wrist. The faint mark where her Omega tag used to be, gone. In its place, her veins shimmered faintly, not silver, not gold. A pale, iridescent glow that changed color when she breathed. Damien stirred beside her. When he opened his eyes, they weren't alpha silver anymore either. They were something new, fractured tones of blue and white, like lightning trapped under ice. For a long moment, neither spoke. They just listened, 2 heartbeats moving in one rhythm. Finally, he said, "You didn't die." She smiled faintly. "Neither did you." He tried to sit up, wincing as the bed creaked beneath him. "How long?" "Hours, maybe." The sink stabilized. "The surge didn't kill us." His gaze flicked toward the monitor. "It should have." "I know." She stood slowly, legs unsteady. The glass beneath her feet pulsed faintly, following her movement like a heartbeat spreading through the building. Every step she took made the walls react. Lights dimming, systems awakening, recognizing her signal. He rose after her, voice low. "The building's reading us as one system." "It should," she said softly. "We're still connected." He frowned. "The bond?" She shook her head. "No, something else. The bond was about dominance, one leading, one obeying. But this..." She touched his wrist. The pulse beneath it thrummed, equal, mirrored, alive. "This isn't a bond. It's a rewrite." The main console flickered to life, text scrolling across the glass. Genetic frequency, unknown. Alpha, null omega, null new classification detected, hybrid prime. Ariana froze. Hybrid prime. Damien stared at the screen. "That's not a designation I've ever seen." "It's not supposed to exist," she said. At that exact moment, the tower's emergency speakers crackled to life. A voice echoed through the chamber. Cold, official, calm. "Unauthorized frequency detected within Kale Tower. Hybrid classification confirmed. Genetic status, illegal existence. All enforcement units initiate termination protocol." The color drained from her face. "They're coming." Damien turned toward the windows. Down below, the city lights were shifting. Grid lines turning red. Patrol drones rerouting toward the tower. The council had detected the anomaly and decided whatever they had become couldn't be allowed to exist. He moved to the console, typing rapid override commands, but the system rejected him. Access denied. Unrecognized genetic signature. "They've revoked my identity," he muttered. "To them, I'm already dead." She joined him at the console, pressing her hand against the surface. The screen reacted instantly, merging their signatures into one pulse of light. "Then we don't use their system," she said. "We rewrite it." He glanced at her. "You mean override the council's genetic registry?" "I mean delete it." The lights outside the tower flickered again. Drones converging, anti-air batteries powering up. The whole skyline looked like a heartbeat ready to explode. Damien exhaled slowly. "You realize if we do that, we erase every Alpha and Omega from record. Every citizen, every rank, every hierarchy." She met his eyes. "Exactly. No more classes. No more control." He hesitated, then smiled just slightly. The equalizer state. That's what the files called it, she said. A myth. But maybe that's what we are now. A myth with teeth. He reached for her hand, fingers lacing through hers. Then let's finish what we started. Down in the council chamber, Maris Thorne watched the data feeds unravel. The screens around him flickered, genetic registries vanishing in cascading errors. Sir, the frequency's rewriting the database itself, a technician shouted. We can't isolate it. Thorne's jaw tightened. Find the source. We did. Kale Tower, the penthouse system. Then burn it down. Above, the tower shook as the first missile struck its shield barrier. The glass walls rippled but didn't shatter. The energy field redirected the blast. Damien and Ariana stood in the center of the room, hands locked together, their merged pulse feeding into the console's core. The monitors streamed data faster than light, gene templates dissolving, neural codes fragmenting. Every controlled pack in the city screamed through their comm lines as the Alpha Command hierarchy failed. They're losing control, Damien said, voice tight. We're rewriting the structure faster than they can contain it. Ariana's eyes blazed with light. Keep going. The building trembled again. Another impact, closer this time. Smoke filtered through the cracks in the ceiling. Sparks rained from damaged wires. He turned toward her, voice urgent. If this keeps up, the surge will collapse our systems too. The equalizer frequency's unstable. She looked up at him, calm despite the chaos. Then we stabilize it. Together. He hesitated, then nodded. One last sync. They stepped closer until their foreheads touched. The console registered dual input. Heartbeats merging, frequencies aligning, light intensifying until the room glowed white. Outside, the city's surveillance grid exploded in sparks. Drones fell like dying stars. The hierarchy that had ruled generations disintegrated in a storm of digital ash. Inside the tower, the pulse settled, one deep beat that shook the entire skyline. Then silence. When the light faded, they were still standing, breathing, alive, but changed. Damien looked down at his hands. The veins beneath the skin shimmered faint gold and blue, no longer alpha silver. Ariana's eyes reflected that same spectrum. Neither purely alpha, neither purely omega. Something new, balanced, alive. He touched her cheek, voice soft. What are we? She smiled faintly. The bond that wasn't. He frowned. Meaning? We didn't bind to control each other. We merged to free everyone else. He almost laughed. The sound of disbelief and relief tangled together. We just erased the world's oldest rule. And wrote a new one, she said. He glanced toward the horizon. The sky over Nova Metropolis was clearing, sunlight breaking through the smoke. But even from here, they could see drones still circling, the council's remnants scanning for their signal. They'll never stop hunting us, he said. Then we stay ahead of the scan. As if on cue, a voice echoed through the tower's remaining speaker system. Synthetic, cold, absolute. New genetic classification detected, hybrid prime. Status, illegal existence. Global termination directive issued. Ariana looked up at the ceiling. Guess that's our wanted poster. Damien smirked weakly. Could have been worse. They could have called us married. She elbowed him gently, then turned toward the shattered glass wall. The city stretched out below, glittering and broken. He stepped beside her. So what happens now? She looked over her shoulder, eyes glowing faintly in the sunlight. Now the world finds out what happens when balance fights back. They stood there a moment longer, silent, as the morning wind swept through the ruined tower. Far below, the citizens of Nova Metropolis stared up at the collapsing hierarchy on their screens. The old classes erased, the networks blank, the message repeating in endless white text, frequency stabilized, classification unknown. The age of Alpha and Omega was over. Something else had begun. In the shadowed depths of the Council's underground archive, Maris Thorne watched the final remnants of data collapse. Every file was gone except one, its title flickering across the screen. Hybrid Prime. Active. He smiled faintly. They think they're free. He reached into his coat, pulling out a vial filled with faintly glowing blood, silver threaded with gold. Freedom, he whispered, holding it up to the light, is just another experiment. The morning after the surge, Nova Metropolis looked like a city holding its breath. The streets were flooded with silence. No sirens, no orders, no structure. For the first time in generations, no one knew who to obey. And for the first time in centuries, no one had to. But freedom, like every system, came with a flaw. Without the hierarchy, alphas panicked. Packs fractured overnight. Old instincts resurfaced, dominance without order, power without restraint. Omegas, once oppressed, stood at the front lines demanding justice. Some wanted equality, others vengeance. The Council called it the collapse, and by noon, they had found their scapegoats. A holographic broadcast spread across every screen in the city. Damaged or not, it still reached every corner. The image was of Damien Kale, his face pale, eyes cold. The headline burned above him in bold letters: "The King is corrupted. Hybrid virus created. Quarantine all infected." The message came with footage. He and Ariana inside the penthouse, their hands intertwined, their merged pulse visible on the monitors. The Council had twisted the footage into propaganda, calling it proof that he had turned against his own kind and unleashed a bioweapon. By nightfall, bounty orders were circulating through every surviving pack. The words were clear: kill the king, capture the girl, restore order. In the Undercity, Ariana and Damien moved through the tunnels like shadows. Their clothes were torn, their bodies bruised. Neither spoke much anymore. Every sound from above echoed down through the metal pipes: boots, engines, drones. They had no allies now. The rebellion thought they'd sold out. The Council wanted them erased, and the civilians just wanted someone to blame. Ariana lit a flare, its orange light flickering over rusted walls. "We can't keep running," she said. "We're not running," Damien murmured. "We're surviving." She shot him a look. "That's the same thing." He kept walking. His movements were slower now, each step weighed down by fatigue. The equalizer energy had stabilized their systems, but it drained him faster than it healed. His pulse still thrummed under his skin like a caged storm. They stopped inside an abandoned subway terminal. The ceiling was cracked open, vines crawled through the steel. Old train cars sat on their sides, half buried in rubble. A ghost city beneath a dying one. Ariana sat on a broken bench, pulling her knees close. "You ever think this was supposed to happen?" He looked at her. "You mean the collapse?" She nodded. "We didn't destroy the system, we revealed it. Everyone's just seeing what it always was." He said nothing for a while, then, maybe the world needed to break before it could change. She smiled faintly. "That's an expensive kind of hope." He crouched in front of her. "You said once you wanted truth, not control. You still want it?" "Truth doesn't feed people," she said quietly. "It doesn't rebuild homes. But it stops the next war before it starts. Unless we are the next war." Their eyes met. The silence between them felt heavier than the tunnel. Outside, the city shook again. A riot, a drone strike, or both. Ariana rose. "We can't stay here, they'll find us." He nodded, scanning the tunnel map etched onto the wall. "There's a maintenance shaft leading out through the eastern sector. It connects to the old data hub." Data hub? The city's original network core, pre-council, before genetic regulation existed. She frowned. "It still works?" "Barely, but if I can reach it, I can send a broadcast the council can't censor." Her heart skipped. "You'd expose them?" He nodded once. Completely. They'll kill you for it. They already tried. The journey through the tunnels felt endless. Pools of black water mirrored the faint glow under their skin, shimmering like quiet lightning. At one point, they passed a corridor where graffiti covered the walls, symbols of wolves, crowns, and burning suns. Words scrawled in red paint read, "The king bleeds too." Ariana paused, staring at it. "They think you're a monster." "Maybe I am," he said, "but at least now they know monsters can fall." When they reached the eastern junction, the air grew warmer. Power cables pulsed faintly under the floor, a forgotten artery of the city. Damien brushed away debris until a steel hatch appeared, sealed with the old council crest. He placed his hand against it. The panel lit up in faint blue, scanning. The system hesitated. Then, accepted. Access granted. Alpha Prime. "Still recognizes you," Ariana said. "For now." They climbed down the shaft into a chamber filled with ancient machinery. The walls pulsed with weak light, the hum of outdated servers echoing like breathing. The data core stood in the center, a cylinder of glass and cables alive but dying. Damien wiped dust from the interface. "I can't hide anymore. The council owns the narrative. They've already rewritten me as the enemy." "And what happens when you rewrite them?" He smiled grimly. "Then everyone gets to choose who the enemy really is." He pulled a small device from his jacket, a transmitter, cracked and weathered. "This still runs on the original neural frequency. I can feed my voice through the old channels. It'll hit every screen, every implant, every device linked to the grid." Ariana hesitated. "You sure you want the world to see you again?" He looked at her. "I want them to see us. What the council did. What evolution looks like when it's not afraid." She stepped closer, hand brushing his. "Then say it like truth, not war." He nodded and keyed the mic. The transmitter blinked red. "Live." He spoke. "People of Nova Metropolis," his voice echoed, low and steady, carried through static into every corner of the world. "You've been told the king is corrupted, that the system you were born into is broken because of me. You're right about one thing. The system is broken, but it's been broken since before I ever drew breath." The city froze. Screens flickered to life in apartments, in factories, in the shattered plazas where riots still burned. His face appeared, not regal, not defiant, just human. "They built me in a lab. They built her too. They called us Alpha and Omega, leaders and followers, balance through obedience. But the truth is simpler. They were afraid of evolution, so they engineered control." Ariana stood behind him, silent but visible. The world saw her, saw them together, no hierarchy, no collar, no crown. "I watched them cage thousands of you. I enforced their rules because I believed the lie that order meant peace. But peace without choice isn't peace, it's sedation. Now the council will tell you I'm infected, that she's the disease. But look around you. The only infection is their fear of change." He leaned forward, voice dropping to a near whisper. "This isn't about wolves anymore. It's about evolution." He ended the transmission. Silence. Then chaos. The moment the broadcast hit, the city's remaining packs fractured down the middle. Some hailed him as savior. Others screamed for his execution. Street wars erupted overnight. Alpha loyalists versus new hybrids, Omegas versus synthetic soldiers. The entire social map burned. Above ground, council propaganda screamed false signal. Disregard broadcast, but it was too late. The truth had infected the world faster than any virus could. Down in the tunnels, Damien shut off the console, shoulders trembling from exhaustion. "It's done." Ariana stared at him. "You just declared war on evolution itself." He smiled faintly. "No, I declared it finished." Outside, thunder rolled again, but this time it wasn't from the storm. The city itself was breaking, buildings collapsing under riots, power grids failing, fire rising through the skyline like veins of light. Nova Metropolis was dying and being born all at once. Ariana and Damien stood on the edge of the underpass, watching the skyline flicker in the distance. Every pulse of light matched the beat under their skin. She whispered, "We didn't stop the collapse." "No," he said quietly. "We became it." In the council's subterranean chamber, Thorne watched the world burn across 100 screens. The technician beside him spoke shakily. "Sir, global networks are down. The broadcast destabilized every genetic lock worldwide." Thorne didn't look away from the monitors. "Good. Good?" the technician echoed. He smiled thinly. "Because evolution never stops at 2. He opened a new file, labeled Hybrid Prime, Phase 2, Ascension. The screen flickered. In the reflection, his own veins glowed faint gold. The city no longer slept. Nova Metropolis burned and rebuilt itself in the same breath. Towers flickering between darkness and light as the last remnants of hierarchy tore themselves apart. Every screen in the world still glowed with the same frozen message from Damien's transmission. "This isn't about wolves. It's about evolution." And somewhere beneath that chaos, Ariana Vale prepared to finish what neither destiny nor genetics could. Deep underground, in the ruins of the Council's archive vault, she stood before the main DNA server. A column of glass reaching 40 meters high, filled with shifting strands of light and liquid code. Every living shifter's genome pulsed inside that cylinder. Every alpha, every omega, every manipulated life. Damien's broadcast had freed their minds. Now she would free their blood. Her reflection trembled on the glass. Hair damp from rain, veins faintly glowing blue-gold, eyes steady. The cables above hummed like veins of the earth itself. She spoke softly, as if the server could hear her. "You made us unequal. You divided us by instinct. You thought control was survival. But evolution isn't about control. It's about choice." She pulled the vial of her own blood from her jacket, the one she'd taken before the rebels could drain it. The same blood that had rewritten Damien's genome and broken the Council's hold. In the distance, sirens echoed through the ruins. Drones were closing in. She had minutes. She pressed the vial into the core port. The machine shuddered. Sensors screamed as her frequency merged with the global DNA stream. Waves of light rolled upward through the cylinder, blue, silver, then white. Lines of code began collapsing and reforming faster than the system could track. Across the world, Omegas woke up gasping. The collars they'd worn for decades went dead. Pheromone locks shattered. For the first time, their bodies no longer bowed to the Alpha command field. In the old territories, Alphas stumbled as their power bled away, replaced by a strange, weightless calm. Not weakness, but equality. Their instincts no longer screamed for dominance. Children born under both bloodlines stirred as the new code rewrote them in silence. The hierarchy was dissolving, not destroyed by war, but by a pulse of light written in her name. The system's alarms grew louder. Red warnings flooded the air. Stability. Failure requires primary link balance. Ariana's pulse raced. She understood instantly. The link between her and Damien was still feeding the network. The equalizer state couldn't stabilize while two merged frequencies existed. One had to let go. She swallowed hard, pressing her palm to the glass. "I'm sorry, Damien." She keyed in the override command. Disconnect link. Execute. A surge of pain ripped through her chest, white-hot and endless. The pulse that had tied them since the night in the lab, the heartbeat that had once saved them both, began to fade. She felt him on the other side of the city, collapsing to his knees as the connection unraveled. For a second, she almost stopped. But then she heard the world around her, thousands of new heartbeats sinking into harmony. No dominance, no subordination, just life. She closed her eyes, whispered, "We survived the cage. Now we survive the dawn." And she pressed the final key. Light erupted through the vault, racing up the walls, exploding out of the ground in pillars that pierced the clouds. The servers melted into pure data, their glow spreading through the sky like veins of fire. Above ground, Damien stumbled through the wreckage, hand clutching his chest. The link between them burned out in a single flash. Silent. Final. The bond that wasn't had ended. He collapsed against the broken edge of a balcony, watching the light sweep across the horizon. Every pack beacon went dark. Every genetic tag turned blank. The world was free. He whispered her name once. No answer. Only the quiet hum of wind passing through the empty streets. Then he smelled it. A faint trace in the air. Familiar. Soft. Impossible. Her scent. Alive. Somewhere off-grid, far beyond the reach of any scanner. He smiled through the exhaustion, through the ache, through the silence. She survived the night, he murmured, closing his eyes as sunlight broke over the ruins. Now the world will learn how. The screen went white. For the first time in the history of the packs, there was no crown, no class, no command, only heartbeat. Steady, shared, human. End of Season 1.